Maimonides begins Mishnah Torah with Sefer Hamada, which is the Book of Knowledge. These include commandments concerning people's conceptions and understanding, and is for the most part distinguished from other commandments of the Torah, as most commandments concern specific acts, and we infer principles from the nature of these acts, which will be discussed later. But there are commandments of a broad nature, such as the commandments to love and fear God and to walk in his ways, which are general and don't involve a specific prescribed act. The first commandment Maimonides lists is to know there is a God, and the sages generally agree that this implies one should have an intellectual understanding of why God's existence is necessary and to conceive of him correctly. Not to have a blind faith, but to understand logically as one would understand a math problem. And this is Maimonides' general outlook, and he proceeds to present topics with logic and syllogism, and we will see later that he argues all commandments have a practical purpose, the purpose of some of which are clear, and of others the meaning may be more obscure or even unknowable to humans, but nonetheless, they do have a practical purpose, even if they're unknown. He will say that the general practical purpose of commandments is to refine ethical character, and in some cases conceptions, but the specific mechanism and aspect of the personality affected by a particular commandment may be unclear. Sorry for the tangent. This applies more to the next book, the laws concerning character traits, which is the next section. When addressing topics of metaphysics, as this section, Foundations of the Torah, does, he does so from a scientific perspective, explaining ideas for which the Torah is not necessary to reveal. It's not necessary that the Torah reveal them in order to know them. He employs the scientific paradigms of his era, and we will see later in Sefer Deo, the laws of character traits, that his ideas are largely inferred by logic and broader than the scope of Torah there as well. As Maimonides, as well as most other commentators, interpret that man was made in the image of God to mean that he was made with intellect and discernment, and with this is able to conceive of God and be in his presence. And the result of the sin of Adam and Eve was a diminishment of the intellect and not being able to perceive God as well, as a result of following physical animalistic desires. And we now live in a state where God's presence is not obviously apparent, and people can speculate many different types of things concerning our existence. These ideas I will explore more in depth in sections of Guide for the Perplexed that I hope to cover in later videos. Really, in truth, the type of knowledge which is absolute to us is experience and what we perceive. And although one may be able to hypothesize something like all things are a dream and the next day you may wake up a new person, no one really believes this. Rather, they believe according to what they experience. And we will discuss later in this book, The Foundations of the Torah, that God has placed the Torah in the realm of experiential knowledge, but as mentioned, it is a characteristic of humans that they can accurately conceive of abstract truths, such as mathematical concepts, and it is a principle of the Torah that people should exert their intellect and conceive of abstract truths, including the knowledge of God and the character of his existence, and to exert beyond this with the commandments to love and fear God. So here, in his introduction to Yesodei Torah, he lists the commandments which are addressed, as he does so for every section in Mishnah Torah. This that I'm looking at now is the Chabad.org site, which lists the commandments for every book. In later videos, I'll use Sefaria website, mostly because they offer a lot more in terms of commentaries. The first 5 commandments here deal with what we have talked about in exerting the intellect to conceive these abstract ideas. Also covered are more technical aspects of sanctifying his name, which are the more typical type of commandments which have specific physical parameters. In these videos, I'm dealing with the philosophical aspects of Sefer Hamada, so I will not speak much to this aspect in these videos. He concludes with some mitzvot, some commandments concerning prophecy, and the commandment to listen to prophets. Here again, I'll focus mostly on what Maimonides says about the nature of prophecy. The content of these videos I will make on the foundations of the Torah is less than an hour, about 45 minutes. If you see other videos out there explaining these chapters, you'll find that rabbis spend about an hour on each chapter and have 10 hours of content total for this book. Reading most of the passages and offering explanations. My goal in these videos is to digest a broad scope of content, highlight philosophical ideas, as well as some essential ideas which may not be explicitly clear in the text, without background in Maimonides' more in-depth works like God for the Perplexed, and to provide a foothold to the essential ideas of this book. This should supplement reading and review of the foundations of the Torah on your own to develop independent understanding and to enjoy the writings of Maimonides, as I think you'll find your understanding of these ideas develop over the years, even if you keep them in your heart.